Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has praised Syria's interim leader, Ahmed al-Sharaa, for his strong commitment to fighting terror. Mr. al-Sharaa is in Ankara seeking support to rebuild Syria after 13 years of civil war. President Erdogan has repeatedly signalled his willingness to support Syria despite his own country's current economic crisis. In return, Ankara wants support from Damascus in its efforts to disband the Kurdish militant-run Syrian Democratic Forces in northeastern Syria. So let's look at this with Guido Steinberg, who's a Middle East analyst and international terrorism expert from the German Institute for International and Security Affairs. Welcome back to DW, Guido. Let's start with, we know that Turkey backed Shara's HTS militia, but how well do Turkish officials know him and his organisation?
They know him really well. At least the MIT, the Military Intelligence Service of Turkey, and the military knows him simply because they have provided his organisation, HTS, and the precursor organisation, the Nusra Front, with weapons and possibly with Qatari money for ages now. And since 2017, the Turkish military has protected the rebel territory in Idlib province, where HTS was ruling from that year on. So they know him really well. He's a Turkish client.
Right. And so you use the phrase Turkish client there. Do we feel that there's going to be some obligation felt by one to the other?
Well, obligation, that's a dangerous term in international politics. We have seen that the Turkish government believes that there is some influence that it has over him, and it probably does. We have seen the head of the MIT, the Turkish intelligence service, as the first foreign visitor to Damascus after the takeover of HTS. So the Turkish government...
Straight in there.
Straight in there. Simply, and it showed us something, that the MIT was in control of Idlib. They probably didn't expect HTS to win over the whole country. They wanted to send a signal in Aleppo, the Turks. But still, they now believe that they are in control of Syria, of HTS in Syria, of the country. But what did Ahmed al-Sharaa do? He went to Saudi Arabia first, simply because he wanted to send a signal to Turkey that of course, he has options now. He doesn't want to end up as a Turkish client. He sees himself as the future president of a strong Syria.
OK, this is a dangerous game he's playing. Talk to us about what Turkey hopes to get out of its client in Syria.
Well, Turkey is already an insurgent power in the Middle East. It has intervened in Libya in 2020. It has intervened in the Eastern Mediterranean with the gas fields. It has intervened in the Caucasus, and it has intervened in northern Iraq and in northern Syria. Turkey is clearly an insurgent power looking for some kind of regional power status. And with its influence that it will have on the Syrian government, this strategy is to some extent successful.
Except that the country is economically in dire straits. So if I was Sharaa, I'd be saying, OK, so what have you done for me lately? What can you do for me next?
Yeah, well, that's the problem. That's the problem in the Middle East, that all the potential hegemonic powers are somewhat weak. Iran is weakened by the war against Israel. Saudi Arabia is weak because its military is not worth anything. The UAE is weak because it only has 1 million inhabitants. And Turkey is weak because of its populist spending in recent years and inflation in the country. But Turkey has two more very, very concrete interests in Syria. It first wants to rein in the PKK in eastern Syria. We call it the PYD or the YPG, but it's in fact the Turkish PKK that is ruling the eastern part of Syria. And Turkey wants to get rid of the PKK over there. And secondly, of course, it wants some of the Syrian refugees. There are about 3.5 million Syrian refugees in the country to return to Syria. That is what Turkey wants over there.
Okay. And of course, one of the things that Syria now wants is help to rebuild this country. So is it a case of whoever offers the right to the biggest check?
No, I think that Syria needs more than one partner. Turkey is, in fact, economically too weak to support Syria in any meaningful way. And that is why it is strictly logical for Ahmed al-Sharaa to go to Riyadh. Saudi Arabia is an economic superpower. Qatar, another country that is close to Turkey, is also willing to support the new Syrian state. But at the same time, Syria is dependent on Western nations giving up on the sanctions against Syria. And that is part of the reason why all these new partners, old and new partners of Syria, now exert pressure on their Western partners to end the sanctions.
Ahmed al-Sharaa will have to do quite the dance over the coming years. Thank you so much for guiding us through that so clearly, Guido. Guido Steinberg from the German Institute for International and Security Affairs. Thank you.